What does 3 years visually look like from your perspective, from your purview?
It will look like teachers and educators actually using technology in the classroom and students taking that and helping with their creativity and really helping them understand and engage in education and learning.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things because even with social media, they're like, well, it's up to the parent. And look, as a parent of a 11 and 15-year-old, and sometimes you give that iPad because you're like, I'm in the middle of meetings, just go do your thing, or do the things. And now you see all the implications.
Kristina Francis, CEO and Chief Possibility Officer of Kin & Commons Strategy Group. A transformative leader at the intersection of technology, innovation, and community. Former Executive Director of JFFLabs, where she drove innovation in technology and equitable economic advancement. A courageous strategist turning bold ideas into real impact, helping people and systems thrive.
We're focused on building future-ready ecosystems, and that means mobilizing networks. It means empowering the people in the communities. It also means looking at and designing multi-generational solutions for economic mobility.
I loved our conversation, Kristina, because I feel like you've been part of sort of the change and systematic change when it comes to innovation and technology. It's been your entire career. I think it's also unfair to make it 100% onus on the parent, especially with the technology like artificial intelligence that majority of people have no idea what it is and what it can do.
Well,
I've spent 2 decades guiding CEOs and founders to scale and reimagine what's possible. Now, the biggest shift of our lifetime is here, AI. I'm Seema Alexander, founder of Disruptive AI, co-chair of DC Startup and Tech Week, and the host of the AI CEO podcast. If you're ready to learn how AI is transforming industries, creating new growth, and rewriting the rules of business, this is the podcast for you. Because the truth is, the leaders who adapt now won't just survive, they'll define the future. Let's tap in.
Welcome to today's episode of the AI CEO podcast. My name is Seema Alexander, and I am your host. And today I have the pleasure of introducing Kristina Francis, the CEO of Kin & Commons. But that's not how we originally met. I love sharing my personal stories with so many of my guests because I just get to hang out with some brilliant, smart, innovative people in the work I do. And Kristina and I met through a women's leadership group called
Power of the Pack.
Power of the Pack. Jennifer Ives, big shout out. She brings together so many amazing women doing amazing things.
Yeah.
And you and I sat next to each other maybe a year.
About a year ago. Absolutely. Over dinner and drinks.
Yeah, over my perfect formula, over dinner and drinks. I think it was sangria that night.
Yes.
And then we just went in on when I even understood what you did, which originally you were the former executive director of JFFLabs, which is the jobs of the future, a large nonprofit, the innovation arm of a large nonprofit that focuses on, what the future of humanity and technology and innovation looks like. And specifically, we started talking about AI.
Right. Because we launched the Center for AI and Future of Work, and I was sharing with you some of the work that we were doing. And then we were really focused on workforce and education and transformation there. What I'm focused on now, though, is Kin & Commons, as you said. Super excited because I'm actually doing it with 2 colleagues that I worked with at JFF. We are a strategy and innovation group. Really excited about the work we're doing. We're focused on building future-ready ecosystems, and that means mobilizing networks. It means empowering the people in the communities. It also means looking at and designing multi-generational solutions for economic mobility.
So we're going to talk layman.
Yes, layman.
What does it actually mean? But before we do that, I want to go back to JFFLabs because I want to dig deeper in terms of, we had a great conversation.
Yes.
And then a few months later, you invited me to be part of the Futures Council for AI, Humanity, and Work for JFFLabs. And I think that was, for me, such an honor in so many different ways. But I learned about what you guys were doing in the vision in terms of, you knew that AI was going to be very big.
Yes.
You wanted to put together a group, a coalition that we all came together with the team from JFFLabs, and we got to be at the Moonshot Factory.
Yes, shout out to AJ Thomas for helping to find that spot in the Kiko. Yes, absolutely. That was fun.
That was fun in California. So that is Google's incubator location. and really started strategizing on the beginning of what these frameworks could look like that could impact millions, right?
Yes.
And so I know, again, you have moved on in terms of sort of that core focus, but everything that you do and your background is insane. So like, I'm like really excited about what you shared about it, the innovation strategy piece. But what does that actually mean? Because like my community is non-technical CEOs, founders and business leaders.
Yes.
And one piece I wanted to share with you guys is, when Kristina and I talk, you talk a lot about public-private partnerships.
Absolutely.
You talk a lot about how foundations are funding so many AI opportunities. But I'm going to step back and ask you, you've always said to me, our humanity will be defined in the next 3 years.
Absolutely.
What did you mean by that, and what's really at stake?
Everything is at stake. Family, for one, livelihood. So if I go back and just say what we're doing, it's making sure that people have access to the livelihood that fits best with the life that they want. And that means access to a job if they want it, being able to start a business if they want it, and being able to work in projects and tasks if they want to. I don't think our systems are yet set up for that, and that's part of what we're doing with Kin and Commons. I think what we saw through the Center for AI and Future of Work with JFFLabs is that things are changing. We talk about the World Economic Forum numbers and all the numbers that are coming, all of the reports. There's so many reports out right now. What we know is things are changing. They're changing rapidly. Even seeing people getting laid off from jobs, the government, which was supposed to be a stable work opportunity for people. We are looking at people going to college, and colleges right now, I just saw on LinkedIn, Burning Glass just announced that for the first time in history, degrees are now not an indicator that people will actually have a job. We've kind of known that, but now the data is catching up and showing us.
I just want to pause it.
Yeah.
That's a really important statistic.
Very important statistic.
I knew so many people that if they didn't have their degree, they had so much guilt, right? And they were like, they almost felt stupid even though they're brilliant, right? It was just like a credibility thing. And it doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
Everybody can be on the same playing field because the education is out there.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say, but I will push us on what does college and the education process mean for people? And I think that's still a big thing, right? It's learning how to work with people from different backgrounds. It's learning yourself during a time where you're growing and you're coming up with your own points of view and you're trying to figure out what you want to do, right? Equated to work or equated to who you are. And so that's that livelihood piece. I think we still have to figure that out. Maybe the college premium is not what families need to pay. As someone who has an 18-year-old going into college in a couple of weeks, I can't believe it.
Oh my God.
But I think the humanity changing in 3 years, sometimes we look at 20 years out, 5 years out. I don't think we have that much time to look out, right? I think we grew up probably the same time frame where my elementary school, we had 4 computers. We had a computer lab. And so going to the computer lab was like going to recess.
That's
and
right.
You got picked to do it. Not everyone was opportune to do it at that time. Then we had pagers and beepers. I think I was the first one of my friends to have that. Flip phones, iPhones. It became such a part of our daily routine. That's what AI is becoming, right? We're starting to see people use it more. And I think you and I were talking about how do you AI, right?
Yes.
Like how do you incorporate it into your life? And so even if we also think about the last 2 years, when ChatGPT became a big thing. Of course, AI has been around for a long time, but even the last 2 years, we've seen so much transformation. What are the next 3 years going to be? I think now this is a time to define our human values, how we want to treat people, the systems that we need to set up that weren't originally set up, but now need to be because of the advent of AI and AI integration with quantum, integration with blockchain, integration with digital currency, integration with voice technology, integration with humanoids, right? All of this is happening in the next 3 years, and family structures are changing. What people want out of life, meaning and job, that's all changing. I think, I was at a conference, I think it was about a year ago, with Neil deGrasse Tyson. I don't know if you've ever heard him. Phenomenal speaker.
Who is he?
He is an astrophysicist. I think that's what he is.
So he's a nerd.
He's a nerd.
As I love nerds. Okay.
He's one of us, right? And he was actually talking about exponential change, and that humans right now, we really can't fathom what that is. And so he gave a picture, which I'm going to give. 1905, there's a picture taken in New York, Fifth Avenue. A couple of people are on Fifth Avenue, but there were 50 horses and carriage to one automobile. That's 1905. Right. Fast forward 10 years, 1915, same picture, same block. There are now 50 vehicles, automobiles to every one horse and carriage. 10-year time frame. What happens in the background? There's gas stations. There are people that are driving cars. There are taxi cabs. There are new markets that form that 10 years ago didn't exist. And so that was in 1905 and 1915. We are 2025 going into the next 3 years, next decade. There's going to be so much change.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this. I was at a U.S. Open, City Open last week. This is a big tennis tournament in D.C. And
DC sports are so awesome right now.
They are, and it was incredible tennis. Very competitive. It was really great to be there. I got invited into the Castle Suite. Castle's one of the big developers here. They have a nice setup over there. And I get asked, so what do you do? I'm like, I help accelerate AI adoption and industries. And I'm like, just saying, it's like, it's that fun DC question, but I'm saying it. And the lady looks at me and she's an executive at, and I don't know if it was Castle, but a big development firm. And she goes, slow down. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
And then I had someone else who is, again, high up in the world of commercial real estate. He's like, I just need you to know, like, over 95%, probably more, Seema, of business leaders just don't know what's happening, right? And you've been talking about it for years, meaning me, right? And I was like, yeah, because that's when I got introduced with magic and all the things. And he was like, but when you and I chat about what 3 years is going to look like and how humanity is going to change, many people are like, it's impossible.
Right.
Like, we're not even at that. Like, I talk about, we have crossed the chasm. Other people are like, well, they don't know what they don't know. They just know ChatGPT. It's become the new bounty. Right. So from that 10-year example, I love that because I think visuals are so strong. What do you right now we're in a place that a lot of people are using at least ChatGPT at a minimum. Some, and certain businesses are starting to apply AI in a more intentional way through all the, generative AI and other things, and we can get into that. What does 3 years visually look like from your perspective, from your purview?
Yeah, I think so. I'll take it in layers. And I do think there are some early adopters. Any, technology curve, you have early adopters who set the tone for a market and for what's to come. And then you have folks that come on afterwards. There are a lot of people that will use AI and not even know they're using it. It's in cars right now. You're going to banks. There are many ways that people are using it. I have a 17 and 18-year-old, and they're using Suno for making music and Canva to do other things. AI is embedded in that. And so people right now may not realize how often they're using it or may not be intentional about it, but it's embedded in everything. And so how does that look physically? Gosh, I think that a lot of homes will now start to have different types of technologies in them. I think that, families will start to use it for, moms planning for the week or dads planning for the week, entrepreneurs helping to work out their pricing and their product market fit in ways that can get them to market quicker. It will look like teachers and educators actually using technology in the classroom and students taking that and helping with their creativity and really helping them understand and engage in education and learning. That's the positive side of it. I also think there's going to be people that are losing jobs. And if we don't have a plan in place to help that mindset, I was at a Human and Tech conference, and there's a CEO of a company called Soul, S-O-L. So calm is to meditation as soul is to life purpose.
Love it.
And he came up, he shared a statistic. It was something like 77% of his users, and now he's the #1 spirit tech app. Didn't even know there was a category for that.
Well, everything health and wellness, spirit tech feels it's very right now.
It is so amazing, right? It's like, yes, right? Our humanity, right?
Yeah.
And he said that 77% of his user base, their identity is tied to their job or work that they do. And so one of the things I think about that keeps me up at night is what happens as people are losing that identity or needing to change it. It's not something that people have had to do over time, but now we have large swaths of people that are going to go through this. And so I also see an opportunity for us to balance wellness and nature alongside people reinventing themselves. And as we talked about, even with education, if people don't go to college, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like we've got to change the narrative, and we have to make sure that people have pathways to livelihood and they're not beaten down by not doing something that we said is right or that gives you pedigree.
Yeah, it's interesting because I spent the initial part of my career in corporate America, 13 years, and then I had what I call a little bit of a midlife awakening.
Yes,
that's what I call
awakening.
it.
I like that
midlife awakening. But and it was like I had this whole path of like wanting to work with entrepreneurs and growing. There's a whole personal story that I've shared multiple times on the pod. But I remember when I moved back to DC, I felt I had an identity crisis because like corporate, you're doing the grind, and it's like it is your identity, and the level of work ethic. I'm actually really happy I have both, right? And then eventually to figure out like my point is like I was moving into the entrepreneurial space, trying to figure out how to position myself, all the normal things. I think there's going to be an influx of entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
I think there's going to be an influx of, to your point, like what are the roles, if it's creative roles, if it's, there's different types of, I think, jobs are going to come out that are now self-owned, self-governed, self-employed. And these tools are going to help support that in ways that's never been able to be done before. So I want to move on. I, again, focus a lot on the business side of transformation. You are working on innovation in this space with cities and communities and family and the impact AI has. And it's your driver.
It is.
I was trying to do, and business to me is like the low hanging fruit. You're trying to do systems change and the way it needs to get done. But how does that even work, Kristina? This is a multi-generational problem.
It is. And it's a multi-stakeholder problem and opportunity, right? I think one of the things that I recognize over the last 10 years in the work that I've done is sometimes we have the same players at the table. And this time requires us to be intentional in bringing different voices. And one stakeholder community that we often leave out are parents, our families, our community leaders who are influencing decisions that people are making, where they're shopping, where they are eating dinner, where they're buying their clothes, what games and sports they go to, what games and sports they play. And so when we started Kin & Commons, we really sat down and thought about where can we uniquely focus on where we see a challenge and an opportunity. Part of the opportunity is getting those voices at the table, empowering communities. We have a framework called CODA. So it's community owned, designed, and accountable. And so how do we put the power back in communities? One thing that we also talked about, we saw for years data around labor market insights. That is getting kind of blown out the window right now as jobs are changing. But what isn't getting blown out the window are the community assets in a community. And so if we start there as a starting point, what talent do you have? What are the aspirations of the people? What are your school systems doing? What other assets do you have? Like we've gone over to a bunch of different cities, and some have sports teams like the SEC, some have art and museums, some have nature. And so how do you actually identify that as part of the economic vision and economic mobility opportunity? We talk a lot about AI and jobs, but not every community is going to have that. Some may be manufacturing, some may be cinema. Hopefully my daughter will fall into that. That's what she wants to do. Entertainment. And so I think part of what we do is community ownership, and then also helping communities to understand their assets, and then helping them look at where they should put investments, really looking at programs and things that are working and helping those scale. And now I'll say that, and also say that not everything that's an innovation needs to scale. Sometimes it needs to be hyper local for it to work for the people in the community that people are with.
So I did a lot of repositioning work for years as my advisory practice. And what I'm hearing from you is you're going into these communities and looking at where they play best almost, right? Like when I hear assets, I hear, what are you known for? What do you want to be known for?
Those two.
Right.
Yes.
And then how do you leverage the technology to help support and amplify that? And then bring in the community voices who are already attached to those assets to be able to support the transformation. Is that what I'm hearing?
It is, and it's transformation around 3 areas, education, workforce, and entrepreneurship, because we also believe our hypothesis is that more people will be going in and out of entrepreneurship over the next rest of
life, whatever humanity looks like.
But I think entrepreneurship often is so, it's a part of who we are, right? When you look at when young kids are playing, they are creating all the time. They're coming up with their imagination, their creativity. It's only when they actually start to go to school that declines. Why is that? And we've got to figure out how to keep that in the education and learning process today as we move forward.
Why does this matter for business leaders to know?
Well, one, I think businesses are changing fundamentally because people are changing. Tools and technologies are changing. And so business leaders need to understand, one, where their business sits, if they're in a community, where it sits and how the community views them. They need to understand where their product or service might be going over the next couple of years and where they want to take it. We see a lot of companies pivot, that they started out, Amazon started differently than they are now.
Right.
Netflix started differently than they are now. They're also pivoting. They've had major sports events on Netflix. And so companies need to figure out who they are, who they want to be, what community they're in, how they engage the community, and then the changes that they need to make over time.
Okay. And then so with the work that you guys are doing, you're helping the business community also see that in terms of where the technology and innovation is headed?
Yeah, let me take a step back and explain how we actually enter communities.
Okay.
So one, we want to be invited in as a thought partner and as a strategic partner. And so we will never just go directly into a community. There are some communities where we'd love to work with these communities. And then we do our research to find the local organization or team that's actually has the trust of that community, and we start to work with them.
The ambassadors,
basically. The ambassadors. And usually it's a local intermediary that may be doing something around workforce or training or other types of supports. In the places that we're in right now, that's typically who they are. We have one outlier who's a real estate investor and who's building a new urban center that will have housing, a data center, and an AI preparedness institute.
That's an interesting combination.
It's very interesting. And so that's the other part is what I'll say.
We'll get into that after.
Is the intersectionality of community engagement and community development and economic development.
Oh, God. Got it. So what are some of the earliest signs that you've seen where the future is showing up that people are not maybe paying attention to right now?
So I think that's the who. There's a lot of headlines right now, so many headlines, the political headlines and economic headlines. What our team has had the opportunity to do the last couple of months is actually be on the ground. We call it the proving ground, to really see what people are doing. And so we've been in classrooms, we've been in community centers, we've been in churches, really just talking to people at the intersection of where people engage, have conversation, have dialogue, ask questions, share what's challenging for them. And I'll give
in general.
In general. So we've identified places or been invited in places, and in those places we're getting to know the community. So that's another thing for us is be invited in the community and then get to know the community. We don't just jump and say, here's what you have to do. We really want to understand how people move, how they talk about things. We're working in Birmingham, and I will say that Alabama to me is, I didn't understand how much they have, their community assets. And there are two things that I would want to highlight. Is one, that everyone we've met there who's a community leader is also a historian. I've never met such consistency coming from people from a place that love where they're from and that openly share the history of a place, of a food place that just opened up, of a chef,
so
a teacher, the pride in the knowledge and the passion for the place itself.
And I think you mentioned it, from the Uber drivers to the restaurateurs to the bank
Uber driver.
tellers.
I'm getting a new pair of boots because he had the best boots on. He's like, here's where you go. And you tell Sandra that I sent you. And it's that kind of small town with the flavor of I know that we have opportunity here. We don't have to go elsewhere. And so that's the other thing that we're looking at. People are, in the next 3 years, I believe that people want to find a place where they have community, and it may require them to move. So this migration that we may see within the United States and then outside of the United States, really allowing people to come and be in community with the people that they desire and building a life from there. And we need to be able to do that. And that also is people who have gone away to go to school or for a job, if they want to come back to be with family, that there are actually jobs for them, either jobs that they can get or jobs that they can create for themselves or others.
Okay. So you're going in, you're understanding the community, and then where does the innovation side of this play?
So again, I mentioned we are typically working with local intermediaries or organizations that are doing work at the intersection of education, workforce, technology. Everyone that we're working with has some component of an innovation hub. And I'll go back to Birmingham on this one. Ed Farm is an organization that we're working with. Wayman Jackson runs that organization. They're supporting K through 12, bringing technology into the classroom, not only for the students, but also for the teachers and educators. They have a teacher fellow program. I want to actually just lift up one of the educators that I got a chance to meet. You see me smiling. They have so much talent there. But Tamara Clark, amazing educator.
Shout out to Tamara Clark.
Shout out to Tamara Clark. She is in Birmingham County Schools. And over the last couple of years, just naturally, she decided to bring technology into the classroom. One, you used the word awakening earlier, and I want to use that to awaken the curiosity of her students. So she's K through eighth grade, working a lot with 6th to 8th graders and wanting to get them really engaged.
And so this is public school.
This is a public school. And so Ed Farm creates these Ed Farm spaces, these innovation spaces that are bright and lively. The students can learn how to podcast. They can learn how to code drones. They can build 3D printing tools. They can write. They can create music. There's so much that they can do.
That sounds expensive, Kristina.
Well, it's a defrayed cost because it's community. And so we can talk about that and why philanthropy and others and public-private partnerships are critical. And I can kind of give,
we're going to go there.
I can kind of give what I've seen in Birmingham. It's different in every place. But what Tamara has been able to do in the last couple of years is really build up a reputation for creating a space where kids want to learn and dive into their curiosity. And over the last year, she's actually allowed them to pitch at pitch competitions. So the Samsung Innovation Challenge, there were 300 schools that entered that, and her school won. And when I went into the Ed Farm space where she was, typically when you go in the gym, you might see jerseys hanging of people who have retired, and you can see the history of a team and of a school. Well, she had checks on the wall, and I'm like, what are these checks? And she said, oh, not all of the checks are there, right? But her students had pitched and won competitions upwards of, I think it was $60,000, $70,000 in 1 year. And so what that did was allowed the students to learn that mindset of entrepreneurship.
That's right.
Test it out, take their understanding of the problem in the context of their community and build something. And they won. And so what the Birmingham County School System then did, she is now, I think it's the technology integration facilitator. And so she was teaching in one school, and now she's technology integration facilitator across the Birmingham County schools, and she'll be teaching other educators her process and how she's integrated technology.
So just like in government, there's a new chief AI officer role, at least there's supposed to be in each agency. Is this new technology integrator, administrator, a role that you would see a lot of public schools take after?
I hope we do. Yeah. I hope we do. I don't think it was something that they planned. I will have to validate that. I think it happened because of how good she was, and she was the champion, and then she showed outcomes and results for it. And because of that, they created this position. Why wouldn't you? When you have these outcomes, I want that across the entire school system and across the entire state.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking, we've had many conversations about education and AI, and specifically how do you integrate that into the curriculum. And there's a lot of bureaucracy when it comes to public schools. I'm on this, I think I was sharing with you, I have this organization, or it's like business, right? They create boards, AI boards for private and charter schools because it's easier to get in. Everybody who's ed tech always tells me it's easier to get into private and charter because less bureaucracy to sell their product, to integrate any technology, the decision making, you get to the decision maker quicker. So I go back to, is this the problem in public schools? Again, it's political. It's not always bipartisan. There's layers.
Yes.
But I like this role because that role can start to govern, because they know, Trump, he even said it, right? Like our K through 12 need fundamental AI, education.
Right.
Like it has to happen.
It has to.
China, everyone is way ahead of us.
Way ahead. And they started at home.
Yeah.
And then it goes into the school system.
Right.
We can talk about that as well. To your point around ed tech founders say it's easier to go into charter schools. I think here's another thing that we found in Birmingham and through Ed Farm. So one of the things that they've done is they started an accelerator or an innovation challenge where they pick cohorts of ed tech companies that have solutions to a challenge that their teacher fellowship has come up with. And they pay them to actually pilot within the Birmingham County schools. And I think there are a couple of other counties. That's a game changer because a lot of ed tech companies often have a hard time piloting to show the results of their tool and getting feedback from the students and the educators. Typically, you'll get it from folks in technology, the CIOs, but not the actual end users and stakeholders that you need. So that's another thing that I hope to see more of are counties and school systems bringing in technology and testing them in that rigorous way, and then selecting technologies based on the true outcomes they see for students and the input from teachers and educators.
Yeah. Again, I go back to where are people at right now? Just like 6 months ago, I did a career day at my daughter's school, right? And I had, I was like, what do I do in 25 minutes to teach them about AI? And I've shared this on the pod, but it's more of like, I sat there and I did the ChatGPT exercise to create a short story with a couple prompts from them. We then created an image in ChatGPT. I put it and showed them how Runway ML now can take that image and turn it into a video. And then we did a really fun song using prompts in Suno, and it became this fun memory song for the year of Carter Rock clubs. And and they heard their names and their teachers' names, and that all happened in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And there were students, there were teachers and parents in the room. And
what did the parents say?
I call all of them, Kristina. These are things I live for.
Yes.
Like, aha, oh shit moments.
Yes.
Right. And that's one of my fundamental pillars. I'll say it every time, because the more you show them, instead of just telling, people realize the power of what's happening.
Yeah. They can see it. And, if you're a parent and your child comes and says, oh my God, Miss Seema came in and this is what she did. Parents are now like, what is it I want to learn, right? And so this is the next 3 years. I think parents, they're already bombarded with the jobs that they have if they're working outside the home, and then the decisions that they have to make. And so we have to make it easier for them to understand what they can use for their family, what they should be putting in front of their kids. And that's something I'm not seeing a lot of investment going into. Yeah,
it's one of the hardest things, because even with social media, they're like, well, it's up to the parent. It's parent's job. And, and look, as a parent of a 11 and 15-year-old, we're all flawed human beings and we do our best. And sometimes you give that iPad because you're like, I'm in the middle of meetings, just go do your thing, or do the things. And now you see all the implications. I think it's also unfair to make it 100% onus on the parent, especially with the technology like artificial intelligence that majority of people have no idea what it is and what it can do. So, it's okay. So to that end, one of the things that I want to go deeper into is this concept of public-private partnerships in this space, right?
Yes.
Because what you have educated me on is, Seema, there are a lot of foundations giving out money to businesses, to other partnerships to help facilitate some of these innovation hubs, some of the technology that needs to be incorporated, if it's through a company or through a city or education system. Can you kind of speak to us about that and give us a little framing there?
Yes, I think one thing I've enjoyed learning more about and seeing in action is the full capital stack. And so I think, just to go back, I also worked corporate America for almost 20 years. I was a software developer, right? And then I had a software development team supporting.
Fact, Kristina was a software developer.
that I
Never would have thunk
that
it.
I got after I graduated from college. I was a psychology English major in college, and literally my first job, it was the height of the .com. They needed a database administrator.
Yeah.
I'm like, sure, I can do that, because I was only going to work at this company for a year before going back to get my PhD in child psychology.
What if you had vibe coding back then?
There were many nights I was up coding. I'm like, what am I doing? If then you had to create all. I realized that I was a better team leader than just a developer. But it was great to go through because it helped my mindset around systems thinking and how you build.
Public-private partnership.
Yes,
So Gates,
and so
McGovern.
Yes, so let's talk about
GitLab Foundation.
GitLab Foundation. So being able to go across the capital stack, one of the things that the top of funnel and experimentation, we need more of it right now. We need more people to create, to test. And the way that can get funded right now, it's not, VCs aren't going to go too early. Philanthropy is playing a big role there, and so GitLab, Renaissance Foundation, Gates. I shouldn't name them because I'll miss someone, and I'm not trying to inadvertently miss Kapor. These are folks that I've actually had conversations with. Patrick McGovern Foundation. All jumped on this immediately and really also thought about what role they can play. They are providing risk-seeking capital, which is what we need right now, whether that is directly with startups or going into school systems or partnering with a school system, superintendents, tech providers, other venture capital, so that we can then go from idea to testing to then moving to the next phase. We need to see more of that, and it's really good to see foundations putting money there. And that's on the foundation side. You also have corporate philanthropy, like a Salesforce or a Workday, who are testing their product and they want to learn alongside nonprofits and other systems. And so they're putting money to work as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when we think about startups and growth in this innovation and emerging tech cycle, I mean, there's SIVERS also, that's on the government side, right? Where
Small
you go
Business Innovation Research grants.
Yeah, and so you get these grants, and then obviously the VC route and others. But this foundation route, I think people don't know much about, and they always find it difficult because they don't come from a JFFLabs and the credibility there, right? And so what is your advice for a startup that's trying to maybe, obviously they look at the thesis of the foundation, they have a lot of synergy in what they're trying to do. What's the best way to approach a foundation if you don't have a relationship?
Reach out on LinkedIn, pick up the phone and call. It is building the relationship. And that does take a while. I've thought long and hard about when we say trust-based philanthropy, what do we mean, right? And are there funders who will meet you and write a check on day one? No, right? They want to learn, what are you doing? What have you done? What's your customer discovery? The same as on the venture side.
Yes.
But then also I found that funders want to co-create with you. I had an amazing partnership with Michelle Armstrong at Aries Charitable Foundation, and we literally sat and created this 5-year initiative, and she's amazing. And so you need funders like that who are willing to sit down and co-create with you. A lot of times they want to walk alongside of you because part of it for them is also learning. And so really building that relationship, understanding what the thesis is or the mission, being able to show and demonstrate your commitment to what you're doing, and also don't go alone, right? If you can bring others to the table, do so.
So I know the executive director of Together International, based out of DC, Diego. And I remember working on a repositioning strategy for him early on. And, his initial, working with Google, the foundation, and then Amazon's foundation, in the startup side of things. But it was year after year, he had to prove himself. And he has a model where he focuses on disabled people who are, and then educating them on entrepreneurship. And he's built these cohorts specifically for founders with disabilities. And year over year, he's worked so hard. Kristina, I think you might know him. but he's just built these relationships, these foundations, and now, like, now he's getting funded in the more sustainable way.
Yes,
but it
yes.
took time,
It takes
right?
time.
They want to see outcomes.
That's
They want you to hit
Impact.
their KPIs and the impact that you're actually curating. And I just wanted to bring that up because I think on the business side, sometimes we don't always go there because we think that's for nonprofits,
I think the impact storytelling in general, I think no matter what industry you're in, there's an opportunity to get better across the board, right? Sharing what you've done in the past, sharing what you hope to get done over the next 5, 10, 15 years, and being able to narrate that, also going to the people that you're serving, if you are a nonprofit or customers that are using your product, and having them provide testimonials. I think one of the things that I think has been amazing about social media, you get a couple influencers on there telling a story, people are listening. And so I'd love to see more educators sharing stories about what they're doing in the classroom. I shared with you the American Federation for Teachers and that big partnership that they've done with Anthropic and Microsoft and OpenAI.
I don't think most people know about it. Could you share a little bit more on that?
I can.
Yeah.
I hashtag partnerships work. So I'm always like, oh, that's an interesting partnership.
I love it.
And I love it when there are partnerships that you wouldn't think would happen.
Right.
And again, we need, if we're upskilling and we know that we're going to not have a lot of talent for the jobs that we have open, it's not only upskilling and reskilling people in the workforce now. We've got to start young and getting people engaged in technologies, programs, apprenticeships around the work that we know we're going to need. We have to, in some cases, manufacturing, construction, we've got to, remarket that.
That's right.
They're great jobs, but people look down upon them. But they're going to be really good jobs in the future. And imagine leveraging technology in some of those jobs and building future towns and cities and landscapes and, mobility.
Don't you think humanoids are going to be doing a lot of that, Kristina?
I think humanoids are going to be our colleagues.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. That's another skill set. How do you work with AI agents, humanoids, and humans? We're going to have to learn how to do that. It's going to be a learned skill. We're all starting almost from scratch on that one.
Yeah. So this education group,
AFT. So they are going to be working with the big players that I just mentioned to upskill 400,000 teachers. Now that seems like a lot, and I think
in AI
specifically, in AI specifically, because they want the educators to have the skills to know how to use the tools so that they can then take it back to their classrooms, their counterparts. There are, I think, nearly 4 million teachers in the
10%.
US. And so it's 10%, right? And so I'm a numbers person. So I'm like, that's 400,000 is amazing. And I love it. And I'm also thinking, how do we scale? How do we get more teachers? And I think, those teachers are going to have to go back and be, teachers of teachers and help their colleagues come up to speed. It's a great thing.
Is that the plan, though? Is that what they see? I'm assuming 400,000 because it's just a money thing. Like, why stop there?
It's Microsoft, Anthropic, OpenAI. I don't know that it's a money thing.
Okay.
But I do think it's not tried and tested, and so I am a big believer on phased approaches. Like, figure out how you're going to identify the first wave, go through it, see how the outcomes are, and then improve it as you go along.
Is it a virtual program?
I don't know about that. I would assume that there's components that are virtual and components that are in person.
Okay, because if it's virtual, so what I'm hearing is it's a potential pilot. 400,000 people is a lot of big pilots. So they must have thought through some of it, but I think that's going in the right direction.
I do too. It is. We have to do it. Bringing the educators in is a must do. Bringing the superintendents in is a must do.
So I guess this is where I think the correlation for me in business, because I always feel like sometimes the larger companies, they teach almost like builder thinking and like, here, how you develop AI agents, or yes, there are use cases, I'm sure, in ed tech, but I feel like on the business side, sometimes it's like the CIO and CTO getting involved, but I think this is a CEO, C-suite understanding of fundamentally what this technology is so that it can unlock the ability for them to understand how do you automate, how do you enhance product for personalization and precision, and then unlock from the innovation side. So I feel like that's the same thing on the teacher side, right? Or do you have any idea how and what they're teaching?
Well, one, I think it's awareness. I think it's comfortability. It is use cases around education. sometimes and often we say, oh, well, teachers aren't adopting technology, or this community is not adopting technology. And oftentimes that's not true. They are. They're just not, maybe not connecting it to the work that they do.
Sure.
I think for CEOs and corporations, Cognizant is an awesome example of an organization who was like, we want everyone to upskill. And so here's AI products, test and use it. You pitch to us how you think it can help your job. And they, I think, nearly upskilled almost everyone in their organization. They're a large organization. And so organizations...
They're a consulting firm.
They are a technology company.
Cognizant?
Cognizant,
Okay.
yes. And they're global, right? And so I think there are companies that are putting technology in the hands of their employees and saying, show us what you can do and tell us how this is helping. And there's a top-down, bottoms-up approach to that too, because you do need the CEO and the C-suite to agree to it. And you've got to find time for people to upskill. A lot of times people are doing it outside of work. I find that companies that are integrating it into their meetings and what they're doing, it's actually creating a better culture.
Where do you see the business community right now, right? You're in the streets, as we say, right? Like, and so am I, but like, I'd love to get your perspective because you're in different streets.
Yes,
Like,
yes. So I think again, kind of the businesses there, I invest in small businesses and startups. And so I'll give that perspective and kind of go up the stack. I'm also on the board of a couple entrepreneurial organizations that support individuals who have ideas that then turn that into a company, and then companies that are expanding and growing. And I'm finding most of the companies are trying to figure out how they integrate AI if they have been in business for a while. I'm also finding a lot of people who are like, I'm starting a business because AI has helped me understand the market very quickly. I already have an MVP. I was actually talking to someone in Puerto Rico yesterday, actually. And it's interesting, he has an AI venture studio, but he has 2 young kids. And unfortunately, they were both ill. And over a weekend, he could not access a pediatrician. And it frustrated him. And he's like, you know what I'm going to do this weekend, Kristina? I'm actually going to build a pediatric access application, and I'm going to allow my people in my community to use it. He can get it up and running very quickly. And so we're starting to see a lot of people test out ideas and test out applications that then can become... Because
of vibe coding, because all these no-code tools, I've said them multiple times here, but Cursor, Replit, Lovable just got I think it's like a multi-billion-dollar evaluation. I mean, these
evaluations are going to be insane.
These tools work, right? And you can start. And I think a lot of investors at this point, if you don't have a prototype in a fast way, like they know the tools. They know what is possible.
And they're starting to look behind the scenes also. I know I was listening to one of your previous guests who said, I think it was Chandler, right? Who was like the first person they sold to, it wasn't a full working MVP, right? And so knowing who your investors are, who you want to bring to the table, sometimes you need that. You need to bring the passion and say, here's the vision, and then get it up and running. And so that's what we're starting to see on the startup landscape, the growth landscape. We're also starting to see some companies merge, right? And really look at what are some compatible, service offerings that we want to bring together and bringing, creating those mergers and acquisitions. And unfortunately, we've seen some companies that are closing as well.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the normal cycle of any emerging tech. So if you had a CEO in the room for 5 minutes, what would your advice to them be?
Number one, it would be get some sleep. Okay. I think sleep is underrated. And I think being a leader right now, no joke, it is one of the hardest things to do, because you're not only managing your business, you're also managing people, and people are going through a lot. And so I don't want to underestimate that, but sleep is really critical. So I would say that 30 seconds. The second is, if they haven't started something, I would start small and start local and have them really, get to know and identify a couple of local, whether it's a university or an local intermediary or a solution provider, and build community and find out where they can fit in to support and help, particularly if they're a large corporation that can maybe help fund an initiative, a challenge of some sort for a place. If they can support AI literacy, if they can, give their employees an opportunity to work with the community, start small, start local, and start building.
Yeah, so I'm going to push a little bit on that, because my question was around these folks may not already be adopting AI themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear that side of it.
Yeah.
That's the impact side.
Mm-hmm.
But, if someone has not started or is in the messy middle, as I say it, like, from what you're seeing,
Mm-hmm.
what's the level of urgency right now?
Because I'm in it, I think it is incumbent on everyone to become aware of it. I do believe that there are some businesses that their business model right now, they can probably sustain. Not everyone has to integrate AI in everything that they're doing. It's not meant for every business. But for a majority of businesses, particularly services business, there's gains that people can get. And I think it's a matter of sitting down, working with other people who understand how AI might be able to support. So it may be getting a consultant to come in to look at your processes and what you're doing, and more importantly, where your strategy is, and provide you some insight on where you might go, and then decide if that's something you want to invest in or not. Over time, those who are using AI are going to move faster and hopefully sustain their businesses longer.
Yeah, what we've seen from the services side is, like, I think a lot of these companies don't just want to pay for discovery.
Yeah.
Don't just want to pay for a roadmap. They want, an ROI from the beginning. So even if you're working with, any service provider, including ourselves, but like, make sure you ask for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I need like a one or two, call it agentic solutions, call it an AI solution that's going to actually change the game, the needle on internally, so that we can create these business case to really continue to go. And I think, again, I go back to oh shit, I go back to like shock and awe people, like, but actually get it done, because it can really make a huge difference. So that's one thing I see.
And pay attention to your employees, right? There are companies that may not be actively pursuing AI at the enterprise level or at the company level, but I bet there are some employees that are working that are trying to figure out how to use it. And so it might be as simple as a call to your employees to surface ideas that they have as well.
Yeah. What do you say to them about jobs?
To the CEOs?
Yes. Where is it going? What's happening?
I think a lot. I mean, we're seeing companies are now taking a look at what is absolutely needed, and they're shedding what's not, and they're repositioning where they need to. This is a market change that's happening. I think job redesign is happening as we go across the board. What types of positions do you need? What skills do you need to sustain through this time of uncertainty and change? A lot of people, like I say, build your A team, right? Like them or not, what Meta is doing right now, they're building a ridiculous A team.
Speak more to that, please. I'd love to.
They have brought folks in from OpenAI, from other companies that
they were poaching folks from OpenAI and giving them a lot of money to do so.
$10 million to $100 million,
That's
right?
Crazy.
And the question is that sustainable? Is that what we're going to see? Like, if people have these specialty skills, are we going to see these astronomical prices for them? Maybe we will. Maybe it's for a short time until it gets to. But this is the next 3 years, right? This is what we're seeing.
That's right.
Who would have ever thought that an AI team, everyone on the team would be making that kind of money?
It feels like a sports team.
Think about it, right? I have always said, I played sports, soccer, basketball, and lacrosse growing up. And even how I think about teams, you manage towards a team. Everyone has a strength. You got to get to know that team, and you bring your players, and the combination of the people that you put on that team get you the victory and get you the win. And so I do think if I'm a CEO, which I am, building the team that is going to get you the win for the mission that you have. And so some CEOs have to look at what their team is now, and is this a team to take you into this next chapter?
So this is a time for the nerds.
It's a time for the nerds and those who are okay with uncertainty. There's a lot of people that are like, I just need my checklist, I need to go, and aren't great with pivots.
That's right.
So I think the next couple of years, 3 years, we're also going to see a lot more pivots, and it's just part of the business.
And I also think this is the opportunity for strategists who are reimagining businesses because of what the power of the AI can do, right?
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of CEOs need that type of coaching and advisory to say, you actually don't need to do it like this anymore. We actually need to step back and reimagine what this industry, where the industry is going.
Absolutely.
And then what does it look like for you? Because all of these traditional workflows and all the things, is not the way anymore.
I was talking to a company, we're doing some strategy work for them. And so they are repositioning the company. We had the same talk around what are the people and the skills that you need? Don't talk about titles right now, but what are the people and the skills, and let's map them to the goals. And so they've recomped their entire team and they've moved some people from a W to a contractor, and actually worked out other types of employee benefits and support, which I think is another growing area. Is company structures are changing. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more smaller core teams that are W-2s, and then they're going to be bringing on bench players, if we want to use that analogy, and providing different types of lifestyle benefits.
Interesting. So by 2030, what do you think every CEO needs this particular role? Like they have to have it in their business?
There are a couple, I've made up a few roles that I think are really interesting. I think there's a human optimizer role, right? Like, so I'm
the chief human optimizer. That's my role.
The role is, how do you get your humans to perform at the optimal level? You're going to have AI agents. You might have humanoids, depending, like not every business has that. But how do you create and make sure that all of your human employees are operating at their fullest and have everything that they need? So that's one role.
That's interesting.
The other, I think, is going to be like a lifestyle specialist, or a livelihood specialist. And those are individuals that are really looking at what people need for the work that they're going to do, and how do you structure employment agreements with them, whatever that looks like. Because I think the employee structures will change and people will have some choices on what they do. We talk about jobs, people talk about jobs, we talk about livelihood portfolios. And so
what does that mean?
So it means that people will have multiple streams of income that equate to what their lifestyle and livelihood pay needs to be. So there's semantics that are being developed right now around this. And they're doing a couple of different projects. They might work part-time for a business. They might have their own side business. They may have an Airbnb, right? They may, work a couple of different jobs to make the money they need for their lifestyle that gives them the flexibility in life that they want. And so I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that. Of course, there's a privilege in being able to do that and structure that.
Right.
But I think we've got multiple generations in the workforce right now. I even look at in the conversations I'm having, again, with my 17 and 18-year-old, and they have non-negotiables that they're putting in. Again, from a place of privilege early on. But I think that's going to be an expectation as we go forward.
Yeah. I want to get into accessibility before I get into the next wave of questions around humanoids and agents, because I want on values systems. I want to touch that. But, there was a lot of Innovation Hub talks. There was a lot of, larger programs in cities and opportunities for public-private partnerships. But the reality is, who gets access?
That's our big question, right? And so, when we created Kin and Commons, the Kin is for family and community as infrastructure, that being a big piece. And the Commons is really creating shared resources, public benefit solutions as well, and multi-generational solutions. We want to make sure that the people that need to benefit are at the table and part of the co-design, right? Often people are going into communities and telling them what they need. Now is the time to flip the script and to make sure that people are at the table from the beginning and let them be part of the design.
So you think having the community who is represented in that area as part of the conversations will then, they will take on the opportunities of whatever the technology, whatever the solution, they'll be part of it.
They'll be part of it. And I also think they have an unfair advantage of what the community may want and need. Their voices just haven't been lifted up in a way that contributes to an outcome. And so making that really part of a process that companies and businesses and economic development actually move forward on.
I love that. I could go deeper there, but I think I want to change to this one area around, the next wave of jobs includes humanoids, includes AI agents. It includes sort of new value systems around all that and leadership. Yeah. What's your take? Like, how far are we? And there's a difference between the concept of AI agents and workflows and them being team players, and then the robotics side. So whichever one you want to take first.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the personal, how you AI. So individuals, how you optimize yourself. And if you're leveraging technology to support your own personal processes. I think then there's the team and the business and making sure you're incorporating AI there. I think every team could benefit from it. I mean, even just on Zoom calls and conference calls. I mean, we went from people not wanting to use the note taker to now everyone has a note taker to.
I always say the note takers are the ones that are never not on time.
Always on time. And it has
always
been
on time.
Really interesting. What we've started to do is take our meeting notes from different meetings of the week or, people that we talk to and put that into Notebook LM, have that tell us what we've heard, because there's sometimes it hears things that we don't. And so even that small thing makes a big difference for how we're going back and being present in the moment and being able to listen.
Yeah, Notebook LM, and I think we've chatted about it previously on the podcast, but it's a great tool by Google. You can put in, PDFs. I actually put in the America's AI Action Plan in there because it's a very long document. But it can shoot out like a podcast between two people talking about the document.
Similar to how we're talking.
Just like it, but much more interesting.
Yeah.
They do have a disclaimer that says not always fully accurate, but majority of the time, it's just, AI is not always perfect, but it gets you to understand whatever you're putting in it much faster, much quicker, easier to comprehend in a layman way. And I love the layman. That to me is like the key.
It's important. And we all have to define what it means for us to back to the human values. I think we think long about how this change is affecting even people, right? And so I have a theory around as technologies around us, and this is a little woo-woo, but I'm going to share it, as technologies around us are upgrading, our human self needs to upgrade, right? And so we are living with our lower, reptilian brain. And there's an opportunity for us to shift that to the prefrontal cortex. Again, woo-woo. But I
thought mushrooms did that for you.
I don't know. I haven't done mushrooms, but I do. But
I haven't either, but I am curious.
It's funny. I was talking to someone the other day about psychedelics and how that is like a growing thing again around. That's why I think human optimizer is going to be a role, because it's really around human performance and how you can be your best self.
Yeah. And I'm saying it in jest, but I'm almost not, right? Because I keep hearing that we're not using a lot of our brain. And that to me is always what has got me curious on psychedelics or just because they're natural, right? But it's like, wow, what if I was to open up another part of my brain? What else could happen? I think that is cool.
That's an area I am personally interested. We're not doing this with Kin and Commons right now, but just frequency technologies and neurotechnologies. And I was at a Human and Tech conference that Nicole Bradford put together, amazing conference.
I think you introduced us. Yeah,
I did. I hope you guys can do some work together, and it was really around advances in AI and how humans and AI work together. But then on another floor, she had some of the leaders in neurotechnology. And so they're, my husband and my son were there with me, and it's amazing, and just looking at what happens if you take a minute to meditate, what happens if you can understand the light in your system and where it's hitting your organs, and laying that data over to the data when you go to the doctor. I mean, there's so much that is coming in terms of technology that we can optimize ourselves. And I hope that everyone gets access to it.
Yeah, I've been following functional medicine for years because of the medical challenges. And for me, it's like, there's a beauty in knowing, where the symptoms, like the actual core root of these symptoms, there is a art and formula of like, wow, it's a lot. How do we now bring it together? I think AI is really going to be able to help people understand like what is it that your body needs? What are the right supplements that your body needs? What is they talk about red light therapy and meditation. Is that going to actually bring my cortisol down? And that's a personal and unique thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, I'm excited about that piece. One other area you and I bond a lot on is like the whole Peter Diamandis space and the future of these guys are all like he hangs out with Tony Robbins and all the futurists, right? And I know you're part of the board.
I'm part of I am part of Abundance 360 that I joined this year, and partly because I knew things were moving so fast.
That's right.
And I was like, where can I go and be around the people who are talking about it all the time. So I joined. That was a personal development investment for me. So that's one. And I'm also on the X Prize Learning and Society Brain Trust as we're coming up with different X Prize opportunities.
Yeah.
But I'll say where I learned and heard the CEO figure, which is a humanoid, I mean, Seema, I was sitting there in the audience.
Hold on, you got to step back and give us the lay of the land. I don't even know what
So
Yeah.
this is Abundance 360 conference.
Yeah.
And it's CEOs of large companies and companies that are in the forefront of technology. So you had the CEO of Anduril there, you had the CEO of Thrive, just a lot, we had a whole crypto panel. This was about a year ago, talking about crypto and how much they're actually investing in crypto. And I was surprised at how much of their portfolioes are in crypto. And I'm like, wow, if they're
I've been
wealthy,
following that for years. I have a portfolio, not
too,
enough.
but the percentage has increased of what they actually have in the market. And that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that there's equity in what we're doing. And I see it moving faster and that chasm getting bigger. And so that's why I think education and really getting communities engaged for awareness and adoption are critical. I mean, it's urgent and they can make choices if they want to use it or not. But if they don't know and we don't put it in their hands, people are going to miss this wave.
Yeah. And I think you and I both speak to this as it's not just AI, right?
Yeah.
It's robotics, it's blockchain, it's quantum. It's all coming.
It's personalized healthcare, as you just mentioned, knowing the supplements that you can take. It's education, having access to learning. There's a company that we're working with that I can't wait for more people to learn about this company and to get this technology in their hands. We talk often about degrees and certifications. How often do you read articles?
I do audibles. So audibles where I put them in systems or, it depends. If I'm interested in a topic, I'm on Instagram like, oh, okay, Microsoft just do what I just shared something with you, right? They have identified the 40 new jobs will come out. It's like, very interesting, so I'll start doing that and I'll just go
based on ONET data and their jobs. But so what they do is based on what you read, you get credit for that. And so question that we've always had is, how do you really know if someone's an expert? They can get a degree, yes. They can say that they're an expert, but this actually demonstrate and proves the time people are spending on articles, what they're interested in. It categorizes it so you can share that with people. Imagine being able to couple that with traditional information.
So I'm laughing and smiling because they can measure my doom scrolling on LinkedIn and Instagram
so this
X and Reddit because I doom scroll all these nerdy stuff. So that's cool.
It's funny because Eugene on our team and one of my partners, he really sold me on it because he started using it. He's like, it is changing my behavior. He's like, I will not read something unless I'm getting credit for it. And then he realized how much he was reading and really diving into the content. And if technology is changing behavior, that's an outcome. That's something we want to see. I think about all the students. My son,
good and bad, though.
It does.
Right.
But imagine, so my son, he's going to take his private pilot license. He spent hours on reading articles on the Microsoft simulator, on YouTube. And there's no credit for that. He'll get his private pilot license, but I also want people to see this kid is dedicated. He's an expert. I would put my life on him. Yeah. And imagine if you can do that in other fields.
Yeah, I think about sports actually. Yeah. Because it's funny because I love my daughter and she plays softball for Whitman High School, right? But like off season, she's not like looking at game tape. She's not like, on YouTube studying. I mean, she'll watch some games here and there, but it's like, there's somebody else who's doing that all season and non-season. Right. And, the ones that are like, not that she's not good, but like there are people that are.
Your mom did not just say that. She did not say that.
No, I said she is good. So it's not that. Okay. Yeah, 100%. She's actually very good. Okay. No. I was saying it's not that she's not good. Right. But there are some folks that just take it to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I think in sports, it's because it's a mindset thing.
It's a mindset.
Are you the Black Mamba or are you like, like Kobe or are you someone who's just like, I'm good.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to practice all the time. I'll play for their high school. Like, there is a different mentality with elite anything.
Right.
When you want to be the best.
Right. and you put the time in. That's the other thing. When we talk about AI, we talk about it as a technology, as a tool, as a driver for economic mobility, as a catalyst for what we want human values to be. And I think that mindset piece is a big one, right? Because there's a lot of people, when we talk about upskilling and training, it's because I have to get upskilled and trained. But then there are a group of people that are like, wait a minute, what can I do with this technology? And these are the folks that are creating new markets and new businesses. And not that one is better than the other. It's just a signal.
Yeah, I think one of the things I love to do, as you know, are do these keynote talks, right? On why AI is bigger than the advent of the internet. And partly it's to shake people up.
Yeah.
Actually, probably 100% of the reason I do it, because as soon as the end of that conversation happens, they're like, oh, I see the urgency. Yeah. I'm not afraid anymore. Yeah. Now I really need to understand it better, because what does it mean for me, my business, my kids? Like, it opens up a can of worms that you can't unsee.
Right.
And I think we need more people continuously, as you're going into communities. That's also I'm very curious about, is like, they have to know that this is coming. Yeah. And a lot of people don't.
And we have to make it so that they are building confidence in it as well. So again, I'll just go back to Birmingham, because I do think the ecosystem matters. And so Birmingham has Innovate Alabama. Cynthia Crutchfield leads that, and she is leading investments in AI infrastructure across the state and regional innovation. You have Tech Birmingham that Dion Gordon leads, he's bringing communities together and advocating for tech businesses. I mentioned Wayman on the Ed Farm and the K through 12 that's bringing AI into the classroom and for both students and teachers. You've got I think it's Birmingham AI organization that's actually doing events for people in the community to come and learn, whether you're an artist or an entrepreneur or just someone in the community. And so they have that going. Then if you go into Alabama, we've met with the Auburn University folks who have the AI Center. Right. And then there's Alabama Aerospace and Aviation School that is helping kids get their drone pilot license, their PPLs, and bringing technology in. And so if you look at that ecosystem, you want to, what I see is that ecosystems working together to make sure that as many constituents, civilians they have opportunities to learn and participate at different levels. And we need to make sure we have that across the board.
Yeah. And every ecosystem, which is not a small feat.
Not a small feat. And not every ecosystem is set up that way or have the trusted relationships. And so I think that's another big part of what we are doing and going into places, is also being the bridge between some organizations that may not even know of each other, or may just be so siloed in what they're doing, or may need to heal fractured relationships and for the good of that community.
Yeah, I have one last question in the work that you do, and then I want to get into rapid fire. Okay. You mentioned it's a multi-generational strategy.
Yes.
To help with education on AI.
Yes.
How are you getting the grandmothers and the grandpas and we talked a lot about the education on the young side, and then the parents that are working all the time. Yeah. Like how is that systematically possible to educate everybody?
So I'll give you two examples of partner that we're working with in Puerto Rico, Platform for Social Impact. Part of their approach is a multi-generational approach. So they're actually building a physical building. I would like to call it a school, but it's one side is K through 12, the other side is adult upskilling, and in the middle is a healthcare facility. And what they wanted to do was co-locate things together, because they, like us, we believe you can upskill an individual, that's good, but when you have people that are living in poverty, oftentimes the reinforcement happens at home. It happens when you see your parent doing something. It happens, you're watching them, you're gonna follow what they're doing. And so what we wanna make sure is that we upskill a family and a community together. Right. And so that is what Platform for Social Impact does. There has to be, again, a leader in doing that, and kind of an ecosystem together to bring people to the table. I naturally see, and this is why we think parents and families, and I get your point that we can't put all the onus on them. However, it is really critical that we make people aware, particularly families and folks who have been in historically left out communities, right? Because we've got to make sure they get the access. We've got to pull them in together. Paul Sorrell, who Michael Sorrell, who is Paul Quinn University, actually was one of the first colleges that I saw when they accepted one person, they were able to bring a family member along with them to that university. Now, he's learned a lot through that process. And sometimes when multiple generations, you have to, as people get older, they have to believe and have hope that if they do this, it's going to make a difference and that their time is well spent. And so that's another mindset thing that we have to work on.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have a whole podcast on how is that even possible? Because you guys are dealing with a lot of stakeholders, right? And I know, and part of that is, I think the success there is through partnerships that you shared.
Absolutely.
And that I think is a big winning theme in this conversation around, how do businesses partner with foundations and philanthropy to help support what's happening in AI. I loved our themes around education, and I'm really hoping that role of that, technology integrator becomes a real thing, nationwide, because that's been a missing link, can take away some of the bureaucracy around where we're at with education. Rapid fire?
Yes, let's do it.
So truth or trap? I'm gonna say something, and you tell me, and then we're gonna get in a couple questions.
Okay, so I just say truth or trap.
Yep.
I don't give you a big explanation on it.
Not for this one.
Okay.
The resume is still the best hiring tool.
Trap.
Upskilling will save the middle class. AI is neutral. It depends on how you use it.
Trap.
Work will always be tied to a company.
Oh, trap.
Innovation must scale to be meaningful.
Innovation must scale to be meaningful. There's truth there.
Okay. Public-private
No. That's a trap. It doesn't have to scale to be meaningful.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine. You get to change your mind. Public-private partnerships are too slow to lead real change.
That's a trap.
Okay, I want to go deeper.
Okay.
Soft skills are now more valuable than hard skills.
That's truth.
Okay. People don't want jobs, they want options.
That's truth.
If you're not using AI, you're already behind.
Truth.
Communities should be treated like customers.
I think that's a trap. I wouldn't say customers.
Okay. What would you say on that one?
They need to be treated like co-designers and owners, not customers.
If you could upskill an entire generation on one skill, what would it be?
Ooh, systems. I would say systems thinking.
Why?
Because I think often people are so focused just on the thing that they're doing, and their unintended consequences come because people don't look at the interplay between what they're doing. And so if people are thinking more about the whole system and the impact, I think we'd have different results in some cases.
Okay. What's one unexpected person you'd put on an AI task force?
I do too. My grandmother was in a hospital recently. She's doing great.
Sorry.
And I had a friend of mine's aunt pass away, and I think hospice nurses I'd put, and youth coaches. And I think the hospice nurse, one of the conversations I had, at end of life, it's you really focus on like dignity and what it means to live and what life is really about. And it'd be interesting to have them bring that perspective amongst the technologists, amongst the people who are figuring out the profit, and it would be interesting to have their voice. And I think the youth sports, because more youth are playing sports, I think they are also part of the family in many cases and influencers, and they teach teamwork and they teach grit and they teach like that mindset that we need, that athletic mindset that we need, I think, for this next phase of humanity.
Okay. If you could redesign the school system and throw something out because of where we're headed with AI, what would it look like?
Just one thing. I would throw out the bureaucracy, like age-based classrooms. I would change around the way that schools are structured, the whole structure. I would have a designer come in and change that. I know you said one thing, but
that's okay. Last one.
Yes.
If AI disappeared tomorrow, what would we have lost?
All of AI or
all of AI?
I think what's been really interesting about AI, it's showing us who we are as a people and who we're not. And I think we would lose that ability to self-reflect and to see the cracks in humanity and the way that we're seeing. I think Mo Gaudet does a really good job of talking about maybe we can get to abundance, but we're going to go through a period because we as humans just aren't ready for this. And I think we've all been disappointed on some decisions that have been made, and so I just think that mirror of who we are.
Yeah. Listen, I loved our conversation, Kristina, because I feel like, you are out in the streets. You've been part of sort of the change and systematic change when it comes to innovation and technology. It's been your entire career. When you and I first met, I was like, oh my God, we're going to not only be friends, but colleagues. And
we have so much more work to do.
I know, but it's mind blowing.
Yes.
But I think this is just one of many conversations, especially as you guys continue to do what you're doing, just to give this business community a different perspective. Right. And I think this is one of those moments of like, you don't have to do what you used to do. There are other ways to get to the outcome.
And guess what? You can test, experiment, and learn. I call it failure sometimes because we can't do things the same way, and we can't be afraid to try new things with different people at the table.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah. How can people find you before?
So LinkedIn is always a good go-to. Our website is www.kenandcommons.com. And so we have an info there if anyone wants to get in touch with us as well.
Awesome. So thank you again for listening in to this amazing, amazing weekly podcast. And, Kristina Francis threw a lot of gold. And if you did love it, like I know you did, can you please comment and share and post away this podcast and many others. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of the AI CEO podcast. If you found today's conversation valuable, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. It helps me reach more leaders like you and continue bringing in top AI first founders, industry experts, and visionary CEOs to share their insights. AI is evolving fast, and the CEOs who harness it today will lead tomorrow. Stay ahead of the curve, keep learning, and keep building. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.